Hey everybody, this is our next video in our C-Suite Dad series. I'm really excited to have Amy Cross with us from Gender Fair. It does a lot of the work of taking the touchy-feely aspects of gender and really compartmentalizing and focusing on the science of gender equality. So Amy, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, and nice to talk to a good dad like you, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you. Complete with mustache for my Movember work I'm doing this month as well. So would love to know a little bit more what brought you to Gender Fair and how this work is so important in this day and age.
Oh, sure. The fast answer is I've been a champion of gender equality since I was 10 years old. I wrote a play called Men's Liberation that inverted the oppression, the oppressors and the oppressed. So women oppressed men. The thing was solved by the women promising to take the men to Bermuda and not play poker so much. I don't know where I got that idea, but I fixed it in one act in my high school cafeteria, in my elementary school cafeteria. But anyway, I've been obsessed with equality since I was a kid. My great grandmother was a suffragist. I knew always go to women's college. And then I realized life hadn't, wrote about this most of my adult life. And then at a certain point, I realized that things hadn't changed very much. And despite my being the first generation, we were 50% of women in university. And I thought that was pretty bad because I thought it was all done. So
Yeah.
I decided to, instead of doing just pure journalism, I want to do data journalism because data journalism can often change things. Like I was inspired by the Human Rights Campaign Guide to Corporate Equality, where they looked at LGBTQ policies in corporate America, rated the companies, and then directed their, pretty small membership to act on this. And within 15 years, they've changed the policies in like 1,500 companies. And half of those now get a perfect score. So my idea is, well, why can't women do the same thing? We've been talking about this for decades, and just the needle is not moving very much. So my idea was to show people this with data and then inspire people to make consumer choices, or at least threaten to, so companies will be forced to change. So that's where it came from. And so we do data journalism. This isn't a best of list that's opaque. With our metrics are all transparent. Am I talking too much now?
No, this is great. This is great.
Okay, our metrics are inspired by the women's empowerment principles. We chose metrics that have benchmarks from like in the real world or that are binary. So, we don't just make up numbers. And we look at 5 categories. We look at leadership. We look at employee policies. We look at advertising, communication depictions. We look at diversity reporting, and we look at social responsibility or philanthropy to women. So now this doesn't make a perfect company. It just shows how it's a very blunt instrument. Show how well are companies doing on these sort of basic policies. I can't and the sad answer is that only about 10% of these companies, of the public companies that we study, meet our metrics. We have about 800 in the database.
Oh, wow.
And the metrics, the benchmarks aren't really high. You get an A if you're a little bit above the Fortune 500 average. And sadly, the numbers that have moved the most are women on boards and parental leave for both men and women. And we separate it in the database.
And how did you
Yeah.
come by these metrics, like build
Oh
the
yeah,
system?
I didn't. You missed your good question. I missed that. We were inspired by the UN's women empowerment principles,
Okay.
which were developed many years ago. So they cover 7 different areas, which we cover in our metrics, although we make 5 categories. And it gives more like a holistic picture of how a company is doing on gender and diversity. So diversity is 10% and always has been of the score. We look at diversity reporting, that is to say, do they publicly show their EEO reports or their employees, and do they also report on the diversity of their spends, because the spending with minority suppliers, because both of those things, diversity reporting and supplier diversity reporting, are ways to change the workforce and a way to change the racial and gender wealth gap. So if you buy from minority and women's businesses, you're sending money to those communities. So we really
Yeah.
believe in that too. It's changing. So it's not just about changing the world inside a company, but also changing the world outside. And making paternity leave is 5% of the metric as opposed to 15 for women. But
Sure.
now eventually, I started this 5 years ago, but ideally now parental leave is equal, and it didn't used to be. Like when we started, we had very clear gender demarcations, like maternity leave was longer and maternity leave, and so it's changing a lot. It's a
Yeah.
changing,
Do you
which is
find a certain type of company comes after you to say, hey, I want to work with you, or are you doing a lot more of the outreach?
Oh, so what happens? We just produce this journalism. We just
Oh,
produce
okay. Sorry,
it.
sorry. I missed. Okay.
We produce the ratings, and no one asks to be in the ratings. We just look at the top consumer companies in each category.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then if companies do well, we then say, would you like to be certified gender fair? And then some companies do, and some companies, don't. And but now, then the exciting part is I can tell you how we're going to make this bigger, because the big companies that are doing well on gender, they've been working at it a long time. They know it's important. Their stakeholders and investors and employees say, we want more fairness. Like Unilever and P&G have been at it for a long time. But so they don't really need our help, or people. I think people know, but the smaller level companies do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can
Do
I
you
tell you about the
have
new thing?
go? Yeah. Yeah. So you've
So
got
the
a new
new thing
instrument.
we're going to do, yeah, the new thing we're going to do, as you wanted to, we're going to talk about today is our new automated assessment for private or nonprofit or other organizations. So we've taken the metrics that our journalists use on the public companies, and we've put it into this secure tool hosted on a site called Ethisphere, which works in compliance. So it's incredibly secure, and I can't even get on it if I don't have a special password.
Sure.
And so companies can put in their data all confidentially and see how they do on these gender fair metrics. And they get a report that's totally automated that gives them recommendations per each grade they get, and resources. It says if you don't have, if you need more women of color on your board, which is a metric, go to this organization like Him for Her, one I just talked about today.
Yep.
Again, Him for Her. I love this idea of men participating in creating equality, because it's not interesting if it's women doing it. Just like that was like laundry for decades. We want everybody to do it together, because
And there's
family
such
laundry.
an enrichment, right, that comes from participation. And a lot of the dads with daughters like myself who I talk to, uh, that moment of becoming a father, not just for men that have daughters, any father really, but there's such a liberating moment for them if they really lean into it and take it
Right.
as such, right? And so why not extend that beyond and become advocates for change in other aspects of our
Right.
lives?
And it's
Yeah,
just probably you hadn't thought about it before. You know what I mean? And you probably have a different outlook on women once you became a father, which is totally fine.
sure.
Don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, the moment I held my daughter and looked at her for the first time, all the theory of gender-based violence and all the masculinity work I've been doing, it just got brought down very real, very quickly into this little body. And I was like, okay, I'm in charge of this little baby for quite a while now, and I gotta
Right.
up my game. Yeah.
And part it sounds like what you did is part of protecting that little baby. I'm starting to cry. Is part of protecting that little baby is making the world better for all the little babies. So
Yeah. Right.
to me, that's the best part of being a parent. It's not just about your own child; it's about all children. And I'm really crying now. So it's
Well, I'll close this out because
it's okay.
we keep
But
these
so
quick. But well, so where can people find you? What's the easiest way to
so
get
yeah,
this resource?
this assessment it's online, Gender Fair. I think it's genderfair.com evaluation, and it's very easy. It only costs $1,000. It's all automated. You just go on, you do a credit card payment, and then it goes straight to the website. And then what's great about this, it gives a holistic measurement of how a company's doing. So you can see, a company might think, oh well, we're great. We have parental leave, and we have a woman on the board, but are you really creating a healthy atmosphere for a lot of people if with more policies like equal pay audits and sexual harassment? For sexual harassment, we look at companies that allow all employees that don't force employees to arbitrate.
Mm, mhm.
I don't know if you know that's a big issue these days in the
Sure.
workforce.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what we measure, because it's the easiest thing to measure, really, and the most important, according to Gretchen Carlson, actually.
Hmm. Yeah. She should know. She was very much at the
Mhm.
center of that for quite a while. So,
She advises us, and
hmm,
she actually has something great that your listeners might want to. These are C-suite dads on their site, Lift Our Voices, which is in the resources we provide with this assessment. They have boilerplate you can add to contracts.
right.
They just give you boilerplate.
That's excellent. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, um, we're coming up to 10 minutes, so I have lots of other questions, and I'm sure many of our readers will as well. But I hope those of you that are reading and watching this take something from this. There will be links in the newsletter for you to connect with Amy and her organization, Gender Fair. please direct any questions through me, or I can connect you directly with Amy if it's a process you want to get involved in, whether it's that their new instrument or just learning more about their past work. So Amy, thank you so much for taking some time today to
Well, thanks for all your
share with
C-suite
us.
dads, because women like we all women need more C-suite dads helping.